And we're back. The second talk today is with Joe Gray. Joe Gray is the winner of the DEFCON Social Engineer CTF. He's a social engineer extraordinaire. He's a forensics enthusiast, DFIR, DFIR, whatever you say. And Joe also is the founder of the mentorship program for InfoSec professionals called the Hacking Class, which we will be hearing more about later. For now, Joe will be presenting his Blue Team forensics talk. And Joe, we're ready. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks everyone for coming out. So this is your Blue Team. It's basically forensic advice for non-forensicators. So before we get started, the thoughts and opinions I express today are mine alone. They do not reflect those of IBM. So for anyone who sees all 4 talks I'm doing today, this is going to be a recurring theme. And as you will see, I did go overkill and put it in every footer, just to make sure there's no confusion. With that being said, about me, I am the 2017 winner of the DEFCON Social Engineering Capture the Flag. I have a few certifications. I've written blogs here and there. I'm speaking tomorrow at 9:15 at RSA if anyone's coming out to that. That's a social engineering talk I'm co-presenting with Rachel Toback. I maintain my own blog and podcast called Advanced Persistent Security. So take a look at that if you feel so inclined. The podcast just came back after a 14-month hiatus. So brand new material. I've got 2 more lost episodes that were recorded over a year ago to publish, but I've got new material coming as well. I've already recorded 2 new episodes. One's already been published. So a lot going on with that. And I'm all about some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I would like to say I do it a lot, but I tap out a lot. And in the words of Helio Gracie, you either win or you learn. I learn a lot. So pretty happy with that. And then, yeah, I used to navigate submarines. People always think it's a joke, but no, it's true. I really did. Hence the anchor tattoos. So with this, why did I put this talk together? Well, I was taking SANS Forensics 508, that corresponds to GCFA, the Forensic Analyst Certification. Class is Advanced Incident Response, Digital Forensics, and Threat Hunting. And as I'm sitting there, I'm pondering the things that I'm learning and that I'm just ingesting. And I don't want to sound too much like a manager when I say this, but I was synthesizing the material. I was reflecting and I was working my way back, preparing for the exam, which I've still not taken yet, unfortunately. But anyway, as I was thinking about it, I'm like, wait a minute, with these things that I just learned, why are we not doing this stuff proactively? Why are we waiting until an incident happens to do this analysis? These are things that we could catalog for a later time and have a benchmark. And this basically is where that came from. So basically, I just want to run some baseline knowledge to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And since I don't have my presenter mode, I'm going to have to turn around and I've not memorized these slides yet. The social engineering talk later today, yeah, that one's memorized completely. So basically, what is DFIR? It's digital forensics and incident response. When we talk about digital forensics, that is the science of reconstructing things that happen. It can also be the science of attack, as I've learned using volatility. It's the unspoken attack tool. So maybe a talk coming later that's basically volatility for investors. Incident response is the organizational response at the high level, including the digital forensics, in terms of how they respond to it, right? So it's how do you communicate? Who do you contact? Is HR involved? Is finance involved? If not, we'll give you a hint. They should be. So basically, we always hear incident response versus incident handling. What's the difference? Response is the big picture. Handling is the steps going in between, in a nutshell. So you can be an incident handler without being an incident responder, and vice versa. For example, HR, accounting, they very well may be incident responders, but they're probably not going to handle anything to maintain the chain of custody. And then right here we have the SANS, and I apologize for the font. The SANS version of the incident response process. That being, you might hear it referred to as FICO. Preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, lessons learned. Excuse me. The majority of your time will be spent in preparation. So all the security talks you hear everywhere, whether they be pen tests, whether they be here's how you harden a Windows server, here's how you lock down Linux, here's how you use SE Linux, whatever. Here's how you configure a Mac. Those are all the incident response process in preparation phase. If you shift into like purple team exercises, then that exercise is going to go alongside this. When you've actually got like a red team or a pen tester that's having a measured response during that time frame, so then it may actually trigger incident response if within scope. But that's something that, from my experience as a consultant prior to making the transition to IBM, most organizations are not at that maturity level. Just as most organizations, as we'll talk about later, are not at the maturity level to do threat hunting. So the majority of the time will be spent in preparation. Sometimes you have to roll back, meaning you've identified the incident, you've taken actions to contain it, but you realize that you either didn't properly identify and classify it, or it's bigger than you thought. And then sometimes you have to roll back. Sometimes you've contained, you think you're contained, you go to eradicate, well, you didn't fully contain, roll back again. And then same thing with recovery. Lessons learned, you typically don't have to roll back into recovery from lessons learned. But any of the others, yeah. So with that being said, we always hear the buzzword threat intelligence. So how does threat intelligence play into this? Well, let me pose a question first. In the DEFCON process, do we produce or consume threat intelligence? Both. It's not a binary response, it's actually trinary. Because you may find things out about a threat actor and be able to produce actionable threat intelligence, or conversely, you may consume someone else's threat intelligence that they gathered so that you can actually better respond. So it's a symbiotic relationship easily. So, could we say that DPR and CTI are the same things? No, they're not. Again, that's that symbiotic relationship. DFIR consumes and produces CTI. CTI is a result of and enabler of. So they're interrelated, but that's it. You can have two completely different disciplines at the same time. Just because you're someone who does threat intelligence does not necessarily mean you're someone who does forensics or incident response, and vice versa. In larger organizations, you may have someone who does file system forensics, network forensics, memory forensics. There's 3 people. Then you have your incident handling team, all your other people, and then once you have all those things put together, you figure everything out, you pass that over to someone else that's actually going to do the threat intelligence. So it's something definitely to consider. Excuse me again. So I mentioned the file system or disk forensics, memory forensics, and network forensics. That's your 3 main types. This talk is going to mostly focus on memory, because for network forensics to be effective, you have to have network traffic. So it may help to have a PCAP, something to use at a later time, but the reality of it is it may not work out simply on the premise that it's a lot harder to determine what is wrong. Like you could use NetFlow and say, yep, here's our baseline, but in terms of like getting deep into the packets, you're not going to get a whole lot out of that. You might see some stuff and be like, oh, well, yeah, there's some weird DNS queries, or why is this ping packet so big? You could always see that, but that's more of the proactive hunting side more so than the forensic side. So you can't really get as proactive on that side. But anyway, so when we talk about file system and disk forensics, there's a few tools, and I've listed tools with this. Notably, we've got SleuthKit, Autopsy. Autopsy literally is the GUI wrapper of SleuthKit. And then we have Scalpel and Foremost. And then to some degree, you can get some things out of the file system with Vault. And slides of every single product that does it. because, I mean, I could do that with any of these. But I wanted to stay pretty concise with everything. With network forensics, you've got like Moloch, Network Miner, your IDS to some degree. And then what many people who do network forensics would consider to be over-reliable, being Wireshark. So you got that. And then on the memory side, I only mentioned 4 tools. And I'm just spelling one of them now that I see that. I always find my mistake whenever I'm giving the presentation. I'm the worst proofreader in the world. But anyway, volatility, that's the one that we're going to talk about the most today. Google has a rebuild, it's a fork off of volatility called Recall. If you use Google Rapid Response, which is agent-based forensic and incident response tools, basically you install the agent on the system, something happens to the system, you can interact with it and get the data. Recall is built into that. It has some different capabilities beyond that of volatility. In some ways, volatility is more powerful. In other ways, recall is more powerful. Those are both in the command line. Then you have Redline. We're going to see this today as well. It's from the GUI. From that, you're going to see it from the 30,000-foot view. Here's a note about Redline. If you're going to use it, use version 1.14, because after version 1.20, they did away with a thing called MRI, the Malware Risk Index. That expedites your process entirely. So FTK Imager, basically you can use that. That's one of the many tools you can use to get a memory image. So to give you a little bit of background, on April 6th, April 7th, I was at B-Sides Orlando. I was presenting this talk. I had everything running that I have running right now for the demo. 3 slides in, the computer blue screen. So after the talk was over, I actually took a memory image. I was like, I didn't have time to do the demos. And I told people, I'm sorry, this didn't work out because I basically improvised for what felt like 35 minutes. Thank you. I always love it when people blow their car horns. But anyway, I improvised for what felt like 35 minutes. And then once it finally came up, we went through the slides. Okay, here's the things I missed from improv. I don't have time for demos, but if anyone wants to see the demo, come see me afterwards. We'll find a quiet place. I'll do the demo. I had quite a posse of people that followed, and actually I took a memory image of my system as a byproduct because, well, I wanted to find out what happened. Unfortunately, I've not analyzed it to know what happened, but I have a pretty good idea. It wasn't on the internet, so no one attacked it. I do know that. So when we're talking about operating systems, the one I'm going to use today is called Sift, SANS Investigative Forensic Toolkit. It's free. Free 99, my favorite price. Also with it is Remnux, reverse engineering malware Linux. You can install Remnux on top of Sift and Sift on top of Remnux, whichever one you want to start with. So in the SANS ecosystem, you use Sift in every course on the forensic side. In Forensics 610, reverse engineering malware, you use Remnux. Sometimes in parallel, sometimes in lieu of. If you install them on top of each other, then you're cooking. Makes it work well. CANE, the computer-aided investigative network environment. It's like Sift. I've not used it, but I know it's been around for a long time and it's actually managed. To some degree, Kali has some of these tools, but I don't know if I would necessarily rely on Kali to be something that I'm going to use for forensics, just being honest. Mercenary Linux, I'm not sure if it's a thing anymore. It was late 2016. I'm seeing conflicting information online as to whether it's still a thing or not. It was built for threat hunting. But I'm gonna completely destroy some vendors here when I say this, and I apologize to any vendors watching. But all threat hunting is proactive forensics. That's it. It could be agent-based, it could be software-based. It's not the man. Like, if you see man behind the curtain, it's nothing but forensics. That's all it is. So, in that sense, you could just as easily use CANE, Remnux, or Sift to do threat hunting. You don't have to have dedicated OS for that. So with that, tools, techniques, benefits, and maturity. Tools and techniques, well, forensic tools and techniques. That's all you really need. So something for memory images, something for network traffic, something for file systems, depending on what the scope of what you're looking for. So basically, the difference between forensics and threat hunting Forensics, you have a kind of an idea of what you're looking for because there's something wonky happening that's triggered an incident. Threat hunting, you may know about something, you may be looking for a specific indicator, or you just may be looking. That's the big difference. And then in terms of maturity, yeah, you can use software. I've not really played with much of it, but a lot of the EDR solutions like Cylance and Carbon Black have that capability. I believe Endgame is another one that does that very heavily. I've heard good things about Endgame. They do employ malware unicorns, so I mean, they're definitely not a shabby shop. But with that, if you're going to do hunt teams, meaning you have a dedicated hunt team that's just going to go snooping around your environment periodically, there's a certain level of maturity. And when you talk about the SANS critical security controls, you probably need to meet at least, no matter what, the first 5. If you're doing security, period, you need to meet the first 5. If you can do those first 5, you are more secure than 85% of the world. But you definitely need to get some of the others in there. If you don't have an incident response plan and you're not meeting control number 19, which is incident response, you have no business doing threat hunting. There's just no reason. So there's a certain level of maturity. You have to dedicate a certain amount of time to the capability scan and say, here you go. It's not pen testing, but some people call it that, and they charge people money for it. But it's reactive. Yeah, you've got an IP address that's reaching out to such and such. You might want to take a look at that. Here's a legal order. We're going to take a look at it. So something to think about. And let's be real. In the forensics world, we want the time to analyze everything. We want to know exactly what happened. In the real world with forensics, the business wants you to do whatever you have to do to be able to restore the system to its original functionality as quickly as possible. So with that, that's going to be, I would consider a constrictor within forensics. So thinking about threat hunting, it's proactive. Again, maturity, size, capability. That's a prereq. But here's the thing. It's not something that I would recommend bringing a consultant in to do. Here's why. It's all based on what is normal. If your business runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, no other activity except on the 3rd Saturday of every month, and all of a sudden you're seeing traffic at like 10 p.m., that's your internal team that's going to see that. As a consultant back in the day, if you'd have brought me, I would have been like, okay, what's running at 10 o'clock? I would have taken a look, but I would have no gauge as to what's considered normal, especially when you're talking about 24/7 operations. I mean, you might have some, sorry about that, you may have some piece of code that's completely insecure that you have to use because of some other service dependency on something you're doing. You know, you might be in the medical field, you might be in the ICS field, and they notoriously use outdated secure software. As a consultant, I'm going to come in and blow a gasket, whereas their internal security team's like, no, we know about this. That's normal. So it's something definitely to keep in mind. But again, we're trying to consume that threat intelligence and identify the anomalies. And then threat hunting, true threat hunting is not based on time objective. And that's another reason it's very tricky for consultants to be able to do that. Because as a consultant, when you're working with client companies, it's all about the billable hour. So they may say, okay, here's 20 hours to go threat hunting in our environment. Of that, you might actually take out 4 hours for reporting, so that leaves 16. You might have 10 to 12 hours of hunting. And when you're talking about forensic analysis, nothing is fast. So in that sense, it's not very much bang for the buck. I mean, there are ways you could go about it and make it work, but it's a little bit tricky. And here at the bottom, the techniques are the same. The tools are the same. The only thing is different time objectives, different outcomes. So here's the standard DFIR talk. Log everything. Parse your logs. Make sure you're only keeping what you really need Store them somewhere that's not on your computer. And let's face it, logs can make you or break you. I can recommend some log analysis tools after this, but that's not something I'm going to go deep into for this. Inventory everything. Sans critical security controls number 1 and number 2. Have an inventory of authorized and unauthorized hardware. That's number 1. Number 2 is software. Inventory everything. You gotta know what's on the network. What hosts are on the network. Are there any that are explicitly not allowed on the network? What software do you have? There's a really cool PowerShell tool called Consa that can actually interact with the Windows environment. It's going to use PowerShell and interact with WMI to be able to interrogate systems and write it to a file. So that's the fun one. And then, of course, update frequently. Would RSA be the giant juggernaut of a conference it is if everybody updated within 30 days? I don't think it would be as big. It's still going to be huge, but I don't think it's going to be as big. It might shrink down to about a DEFCON size, I guess. Who knows? Network time. If you have a single office, okay, you probably don't need it. If you're in multiple time zones, multiple offices, you do. You need to have everyone on the same wavelength. You don't want to have things running in Pacific time, Eastern time, Hawaiian time, and GMT, right? Just use GMT. Set something, define it, stick with it. You don't want to be sitting there thinking through your logs and being like, okay, well, this host is in Cleveland, Ohio. They're, they're Central Time, I think. I don't know. Let's change. This office is in New York City because I know they're in Eastern Time. Okay, but this other host is in Salt Lake City, and it's 2 hours. Or this other host is in Hawaii, and they don't participate in daylight savings time. That's a waste of time. If you just set it in one time zone or GMT, I mean, it's going to do great things for you. And then baselines. We'll get into that. So with this, here's some soft skills, and you're going to hear this in other talks later today, especially when I get on the bandwagon about phishing. But when you're talking about incidents, you need to know who to notify, how to notify them, when to notify them, and what information they need. When I was in the Navy, and even when I worked for the federal government, next to every single phone was a bomb threat worksheet. It was a list of questions you're supposed to ask the caller and try to get them to answer so that you could provide it to the authorities so that they could build their case on it. Why are we not doing that for incident response? Why do we not have that sitting next to us? Why are we using multiple colors of cables? Well, because they're pretty, and we go with what's cheap. But as an organization, why are we not having everyone use purple Cat 5, green Cat 5, blue, whatever color? I don't care. I mean, if you want to have a rainbow squirrel, that's fine. I don't recommend using black, and I'll explain why. Because I would like to put something next to the system that says, if something wonky happens, and define what's wonky. I mean, some things are normal in organizations, some aren't. I can't define that for you. If something happens, unplug the purple cable. If that's what you want them to do. That may be the right answer, it may not be. With the actions to take, do you want them to unplug it from the wall, unplug it from the network? Shut the system down, reboot it. Force a hibernation, lock the screen, do nothing. What? So here's some things you don't want to take. If you find a compromised account, don't go changing the password, because you know what? If you decide to take the perpetrator to court, you have just muddied the chain of custody, tampered with evidence, and more than likely they can get thrown out if they have a decent attorney. That contaminates things. We don't want to do that. Respect the chain of custody. Don't go installing antivirus, like 5 different antiviruses on the system to try to get it off. That's just, it's counterproductive. Here's one, and I've seen this in real life. I know of an organization, they were hit with SamSam, which I've heard that there's a certain large city, perhaps the 7th largest city in the United States, that may be the capital of a state that starts with G and ends in A, that may have been ransomware. But this is not who I'm talking about. It's a different organization. They had RDP running, publicly facing, no VPN, nothing to get to it. 4-character password, log in as admin. They wondered why they got hit with ransomware. Their solution was they were going to disable PowerShell and UMI. Because after they got into RDP, they pivoted and used the fileless ransomware, meaning scripting, to go and do everything. Their response, hey, we need someone to do incident response. Okay, cool. Hey, I'm a forensics company. I have Bitcoin. I can pay to get your stuff unlocked. You're hired. That company didn't even do a report. So later on, I come in and they're like, we want to know what happened. Okay, cool. Can I see the logs for the VM? Oh, the VM got deleted. Okay, let me look at my crystal ball. Okay, there's nothing to get. So you can disable things without deleting them. You can go and make network, you can put them on temporary VLANs. You can disable things. I wouldn't turn them off though, because of the memory image. Because once you reboot it or you power it down, you have a very limited shelf life in terms of what you can pull out of memory. So again, chain of custody. If you're taking it to court, you've got to respect it. Because the reality is, the chain of custody is important for incident responders, but it's more important for the legal aspect of it. So that's where it came from. If you decide you want to have a conversation with a lawyer, you can talk to them about chain of custody and they will understand what you're talking about. It's one of the few things that within our field that we can talk to lawyers about and then not look at us like we're a Martian. So now, we've got through the basics. You've got your standard DPR talk, so that horse has been beat. We can put golf clubs down. That's not the cool stuff. So memory analysis. There's various ways we can do this, right? You can use things like FTK imagery, recall, Google Rapid Response, F response, not to be confused with F secure, Lego Hipponet company. F response, Lime, and then mirror. With this, we're going to focus mostly on FTK Imager, because that's, when it comes time to demo, that's the effective way to do it without taking all day. So assessment tools, again, recall and volatility, I've mentioned, they're both command line, and then we have red line. It's GUI, and then again, so before version 1.20, I'm using version 1.14 because of the MRI. So basically, we're trying to find out what's running. These are things that may have not been logged yet. These are things that may be using advanced persistent techniques, such as like process hollowing or other things to hide. You may see outbound traffic on port 443. It's no big deal, right? Well, it should be. Because when you're, if it's coming, if the source port is 443, that's a problem in itself. You need to inspect it to determine if it's HTTPS traffic or if it's netcam. Because you can point netcam or Metasploit to port 443 just as well as you can anything else. And I'll give you a hint. I'll get through most IDS systems or IPS systems or firewalls, period. You can use this to replace a lot of the sysinternals tools. So when you're doing malware analysis, we always hear, proc dump, procmon, proc dump, blah, 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 blah. You can do all that out of memory. With a virtualized file, you can take the vmin file. You don't have to use FTK imagery. You just take the vmin file, you can convert it in volatility using image copy into a dump file or a mem file and go straight with it. That's the beautiful thing about virtualization. The thing is with VMware, if you allocate 5 gigs of RAM in VMware, the file's going to be 5 gigs. If you do that in VirtualBox, but you're only using 2, your file size is going to be 2. So there's that. You can cross-reference this with network stuff. There's a plugin called NetScan. You're going to see every single network connection. These things in the file system. Oh, well, this thing was downloaded. Let's take a look. Let's go look at the prefetch, which we'll talk about in a moment. Look at processes. They have, within the plugin, methods to determine should this process be looked at. Basically, it's true or false logic. Is it signed? Has it been time stamped? What's going on with the date and time? Various types of things. Is this process spawned from the right location? Does it have the right switch? For example, it's VC host, right? That's in C, Windows, System 32, and then SVC host. So what if it's in SVC, system 32, but in like say a file called DLL host? SVC host also runs with the -K switch. What if it doesn't? Those are things to look at. What process spawned this? Is it worth looking at? You can even do registry analysis. So time stamping, that's a huge problem right now, right? So here's a cool thing. If you know the specific registry key that a piece of malware touched, you can go and actually find the registry key creation date in volatility. I'm going to quote Rob Lee, the SANS instructor that taught the course. And he basically said, most of your adversaries are not going to be able to edit this stage. There's speculation that some advanced actors have the capability. But fear not, because if they're the ones targeting you, you're not going to know what's happening. So that's definitely something to think about. And then you've got like malsys proc and malfind. Those help you in finding malware. Use that in conjunction with Redline. Now you've cut your analysis time down from, say, 20 minutes to 7 minutes. So with this capabilities, and these are just some of the plugins, we can use Mimikatz. There's a Mimikatz plugin for volatility. If I have a memory image, I can tell you every single password on the system. I can also dump the hashes. Rogue processes. So we have the PS scan, PS list, PS tree. With SANS, someone wrote one called PS total that puts them all together, put it into a dot file. You convert that dot file to a graphic, and you can actually look at it, and it will highlight with colors and tell you, hey, you want to look at this for this reason or that reason or whatever. The networking. If you're using anything Windows 7 or later, you're going to use NetScan. Sockets and SockScan, that's going to be XP before. You can get DLLs and drivers from processes. You can carve processes to samples. So you have a process that looks a little bit shady. You want to get a look at virus total and find out. You can carve that process out, upload it to virus total. If it's no, they'll tell you. Get key, when things were really installed. That's that whole registry key creation date that's near impossible to timestamp or timestamp. Timelines. When you get into forensics in general, especially when you start talking about file systems, it's all about the body file and it's all about the timeline. So in that sense, you're going to use the tools like SleuthKit or whatever. You're going to create a body file, and then you're going to run something like log to timeline against it. It's going to create a timeline that you're able to look through and see what's going on. Volatility can create a body file as well. What I like to do is I will have the volatility body file, have the SleuthKit body file. I'll review them independently, and then I will append one to the other and run the process again and look at them on top of each other. If I'm analyzing multiple systems, I will do each system one at a time, and then I'll put them all on top of each other. That makes it really easy to see pivot. Additionally, there's the malfind and malsys proc. So here's some other valuable analysis. We've got prefetch. Basically, with this, it's going to be something that's going to allow you to see that a file has executed. With this, you can also see if a file was downloaded. Like when you see that tilde file name stuff, it's a prefetch. If you don't see it prefetch, that means it's probably suspicious. Either you don't have it configured, which you should, or someone's come in and deleted it. You've had an actor that knows enough about forensics to say bye-bye. But basically, with this, whenever you're dealing with updates, you should have a golden image. We've heard this all before, right? Have a golden image. Know what's on it. Do this, do that. Get a memory sample. That's the key crux of this talk. When you have a standard image, so you have an organization standard image. Everybody in the organization has this image. Okay, HR, you need these additional tools. Here's the HR overlay. Here's the accounting overlay. Here's the IT overlay. So forth and so on. When you create those standard images, execute them, take a memory image. It's invaluable because you're not scrambling to find a known good host when something happens. You already have the image. You can use prefetch parser. That's one method. There's a few other tools that come built into Sift to help you with prefetch as well. But there's the directory location if you want to take a look at the Windows environment. Stream cache. It's also called the application compatibility cache. Like prefetch, it's meant to check the compatibility and see if the software is compatible with the version. Basically, it stores it. You're going to get the full path size. You're going to get standard information, the file size, and then a process execution file. That's going to tell you, was this ran for the first time? Was this installed? And so on. So a lot of interesting information here. And it is not enabled by default, so you have to go to this registry key to set it up. So a lot of good stuff with it, but it can be rather taxing from time to time as well. Stream cache is going to run either way, but whether you're going to be able to see it, that's a different story. So processes. Okay, we always hear, have a baseline of all your processes, all your software, right? Excuse me. So what do? All right, cool. I know that I have Google Chrome version 55 installed. I have Internet Explorer 6, Java version 6 update 8675309, so forth and so on. Okay, cool. Well, what if I told you that information is pretty much worthless? Yeah, here's what you need. Hashes. 2 times. D5 or SHA-1, whatever you want to take. Because you're not doing this for the purpose, like you don't care if someone cracks this hash, right? You're just doing it for integrity. You're not hashing a password, so you're not worried if they figure out what it is. So you can do MD5, it's faster. You go with it, okay? You can see, has this file been modified? Yes, no. It's binary, straight up. It's the hash match. Okay, cool. Write all that to a file. Store it somewhere. So you can script it to where MD5 sum will run, or I'm sorry, MD5 deep could run across every single file that you consider important. I'm not going to say do it to the entire file system. If you're going to do it to specific directories, I would do it to the home directory and Windows, specifically System 32. But nevertheless, and especially make sure you get SVT host. But with it, write it to a file, move the file somewhere else, update it regularly. You can even have it as part of the logon script. You can set that via GPO. It'll happen during logon. It'll dump it over. You have it. No big deal. The only problem is some people never reboot. So I'd probably look at it a different way than that. But with that being said, it's going to say yes or no. The other side, SSD. That is called fuzzy hashing. That is outright. So if I change the header of this file, I'm going to be able to see that with the fuzzy hash. So maintain that as well. It's going to be a little bit more resource intensive, but it's going to help you really hone in on what part of the file has changed. What was done to this file to Trojan it. Then you're with your registry, get a hash of your registry, catalog the creation dates with each update. That way when something comes in and wants to change something, you know the true creation date. You can script it with regular expressions to parse those keys and dates out. It's going to be a pain, but it's possible. Or just take a backup of your registry. That's an alternative as well. So, baselines. So I talked about getting the memory image. Volatility by default has 3 baseline modules. We have process, server, and driver. You can take that known good image that we were talking about, that we took when we made the golden image, and compare it against one from a host that has been breached. Think of how much time that's going to save you. You're not having to go through and be like, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? No, you already know, because you've got a baseline to compare it with. Each image, again, that's why you have your HR image, your IT image, your standard image, whatever. You can do it every host, every update, but yeah, scripting the capture is going to be a pain. And even more so, storing the captures will be a pain. Because say you have a system with 8 gigs of RAM, memory image of it, anybody want to guess the file size? 8 gigs. You talk about, it's very well known how many employees IBM has. So you factor in you have 500,000 employees. Minimum RAM is probably 8 gigs. Okay, so now we've already hit 4 million gigs each time. That's not including servers. You might have some massive servers that have like 128 gigs of RAM, or a hypervisor that has that. Do you really want to start trying to store that amount of data? I don't think so. If you got the money to do it, by all means do it. Or you could just give me the money. I'd be cool with taking the money too. So it's coming time for the demo. I'm going to skip this portion. I'm going to come back to that just to go through the rest of the slides, since I'm going to have to go to the back of the room for the demos. But anyway, with the network forensics, this is a little piece with this. I'm not going to go too deep into the network side, but switch your SIM or IDS or whatever to take a PCAP when something goes down. Take them as often as possible, store them in a secure manner. Keep in mind, just like memory images, storage is money. Integrate it with your SIM. That way you've got your logs. You can look at NetFlow. You can determine what is normal based on the NetFlow. With the NetFlow, you're going to get some metadata. You're not going to find out everything, but you'll find out which host communicated with which host for how long, how many bytes were sent, received, so forth and so on. So that could be useful as well. Vulnerability data, that definitely plays into things. I'm not going to say that if you patch everything that people can get in, because I've been doing a lot of capture the flags lately. And granted, they have been against vulnerable versions of WordPress with the example I'm going to use. But the thing is, if you have a weak password, say you're using admin, if I get in, I can still upload a reverse shell via a plugin or any other thing that will execute the code and still get a reverse shell into it and start compromising the system. It can be fully patched and I can still get in that way. So vulnerability data is definitely important for that reason. With your PCAPs, you can actually carve them. And I'm going to show you with Network Miner. You can do it with Wireshark. It's just a lot more longer of a process. It's a little bit more intense. So when you're looking at this from the perspective of being efficient, nothing against Wireshark, but Network Miner is just a little bit faster for what we're trying to do. And then there's that part. Going into the file system forensics, there's so much data in that, but it's going to take a lot longer. You can recover deleted files. There's an anti-forensics tool right now called SRA. Before it deletes the file, it overwrites it. So whenever you come back to try to carve out that deleted file, yeah, depending on how they do it. I mean, if they just did a XOR function and flip the bits, it's not going to matter. You can reverse engineer that. But if they go with some pseudo random algorithm, or just go all zeros, all ones, whatever, yeah, you're going to be hard pressed to figure that out. Again, the body file for the timeline. You can get file and directory names using the FLS tool out of SwiftKit. ICAT's going to give you item number, so that's a really useful thing, referencing where it is. So that's going to help you look for things in the file system by knowing that inode number. In Linux, you can find it by using ls with the lit switch, so ls minus lit. That's a good way to do it. And then you can look at white or blacklisted files with the hashes, so you can maintain your own custom database. You could use HashKey or the NSRL, the National Software Registry Library. And then alternative data streams. When you download a file, it initially creates an alternative data stream, so you can use that. You can enumerate that alternative data stream, bring it back, and then use LADs to actually extract that out and find out what was going on. So you can find out why the attacker was sending notepad.exe or cop.exe to some random host and insert hostile country here, right? So it's just a homage to one of my friends from the local Knoxville DEFCON chapter, Adrian Sanabria. He's also speaking at RSA. I think he spoke today, I'm not sure. But he can see clearly now the random zone. Here's what you don't know about him. This photo is cropped, and on his hand, at InfoSec World in Orlando, he had an owl sitting on his hand. He was doing his impression of the owl. So that's where this came from. But being good security people who like to rib each other, we're not about to let you guys see the owl. We just want you to see how clearly Adrian can see. So there's that piece. Now I'm going to go off and do the demo. So I'm going to be off camera doing the demo. I'll make sure that I'm as loud as possible. So just bear with me here. All right, so I'm shifting the screen momentarily. All right, we can see that Adrian can see clearly. So we have that. Let's take a look at Network Miner first, really quickly. And back to extend. Let me move back to. Okay, so we got all this stuff going on. I can't enlarge this, unfortunately, so I apologize for that. Network Miner is a free tool that you can download. There is a commercial version that's $1,300, but this is the free version. Even with my OSINT, I don't pay for things. If it's not free, I don't do it. Unless somebody else is going to pay it. So anyway, for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a PCAP file. I've downloaded a bunch of them from various websites. As you can see here, I've got a man in the middle one here. I've got SMB locking, Eternal Blue. We're going to take a look at this one first. So this is an SMB buddy transfer. Very simple thing. So we see there was 2 hosts. We can find out IP address, MAC, find out the NIC, send and receive packets, size, sessions, and then same thing on the other end. We can take a look at the sessions here, find out what port, all that fun stuff. But here's where it's cool. So here at the bottom of my screen, you can see I have PuTTY installed and it's pinned, but it's not running, right? So watch this. It carved out PuTTY and it shot the executable. Alternatively, let me clear this out and I'll bring in a different. I'm going to bring in a different setting. So you know what? Never mind. Because I have one. When I was doing a CCF last week, one of the flags was you had a PCAP, and in doing it, by carving out, like looking through the PCAP, I was able to steal credits. Just because of the way it went. But we'll take a look here at like an exploit kit. So let's see here. I'm going to move for neutrino. So right here, these are the hosts, same thing. There's some domains that we could look at. So with these domains, you can copy and paste them, run them through some of your threat intelligence feeds like Alien Vault OTX, Threat Miner, Threat Crowd, X-Force Exchange, Threat Connect, whatever. You can run it and see, okay, are these known to be malicious? You can find out context about them as well. So, okay, there's that. The hops, there's the port. Okay, cool. There's some credentials here, but right there's the username. So that may be useful, that may not be. You can copy and paste that and try to use it somewhere else in, like, say, a replay attack, or you can try to use it to get into a system if you need to. Sessions, same thing. You find out who talked to who, start times, parameters. There's a whole lot of stuff here. This right here is on the deep dive. It's a little bit further than I'm looking to go. Here's what's also interesting. So here's the files. Notice right here, that is a shockwave file. Okay? So what can we do? Well, if we right-click on it, we can open the file, which I'm not about to do, because this is for an actual exploit kit. We can open the folder and upload the file to VirusTotal, or we can also do this right here, calculate the hashes, and put them into VirusTotal, or into our threat intelligence feeds. Like, for example, if you're using like Alien Vault OTX, it's called Pulse, and OTX is free, so if you want to use it, it's cool. But anyway, you can input these hashes in it so that depending on how it's checking, you can provide all this information. So that's just one example. And another thing you want to look at, file size. Like,
say for example that octet string, if that was an HTML file, do we really need an HTML file that big? Probably not. But it's all stuff to look at. And that's basically network minor. So this right here is FTK imager. And I'm just going to walk through how to do a memory capture. I'm not actually going to do the capture. So if we want to do it, we'll just say file. We can mount images, whatever. We can create a disk image. And there's all these other things that go grayed out. That's because I'm using Imager Lite, which is free. Right here, you can capture memory. So you give it a path, you say where, it's going to create a min file. You can include the page file as well, and the 81. I've not really played with 81. I'm not sure what it's all about. But the thing about it is, that creates a memory file. You have something to work off of now. You do it, it runs, it tells you when it's done, you're done. So no big deal there. So what do we do with that specific file? Well, right here, this is Redline. I'm just going to open something here. This is the file. It's got some stuff going on, so let's see what's happening with it. And then you can pick whatever, but I usually just say that. And then, well, we got to investigate. If you want to make a reference to, I can't even remember who that's, Daft Punk, I think, Celebrate song. But anyway, oh, look right here. There's the MRI. These red discs indicate that based on things that it's analyzed, that's potentially malicious. So you want to make note of the PID, you want to make note of where it's going. Like right here, we can see the path is system32/DLL host. Huh, interesting. The argument, svc host.exe, it's missing the -K. Okay, that's things to look at. We can go further in depth, and we can search for the web for the process. We can get the address space. Okay, sure. But I like the idea here at the bottom of show details. So here we can see if there are any duplicates. Okay, has this ran more than once. Okay. Handles. Nothing there. Did it communicate on the internet? You're going to see the IPs and the ports. This is not the best example because this specific file is not doing all of that. Strings. There's nothing there. So you can go through and look at various things. Exploit events, network events. And again, this is the 30,000-foot view. The tool being Redline, and it is for the price of $3.99. So good stuff there. I'll go ahead and close this out as well. This is a little bit of a resource hog. And now we have Sift. Might have to use my mom's typing fingers here in a second. I'm not sure. I like to wait for a brief moment on my other fat fingers. We'll give it a second. Kind of just a hair over on time, so I'm gonna, if this doesn't run in the next, okay, my threat was idle. So, we'll get a different one. So, go to desktop, and there's the CTF file, and right here, that's a file from a CTF. And basically, I'm just going to show you the NetScan data, but basically this right here shows us every single process that executed dealing with the network and where it connected. So what was associated with it. So let me do something here really quick. And so yeah, export the volatility profile, because I already know what this is. You know, I've analyzed it before. It is a Win7 SP1 x86 host. So by exporting it, that just means that I don't have to type in this profile every single time I want to run something against this. So we're just going to do volatility.py minus f, and it's going to be against the dump file. And let's just do mimikatz. We'll see if anything's there with mimikatz, if I spell mimikatz right. Unfortunately, with Linux, it does care a lot about case and spelling. So we'll see if anything's found with it. There may be, there may not. I haven't ran this plugin against this specific file, so whatever we see will be new to me as well. Gotta give it a moment. I don't think it's too terribly, nope, no passwords. But here we see the module, and then we'll see the user, the domain, and the password. That's just one example. If you want to see all the plugins, you can just do volatility minus H, and there's every single one of them. They give you a synopsis of what it is. If you're going to get into this, I highly recommend playing with all the plugins to get used to what you can get out of them. But anyway, let's go back to the presentation. All right, so going back through that, so just to finish up, if you want to contact me, here's my contact information. Podcast Advanced Persistent Security, there's where it's available, blah, blah. For the hacking class, if you want more information on that, stick around. What time did I talk today? It's between 2 and 5, I do know that.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. 3 o'clock today, Pacific time, I'll be talking for the hacking class. So here's that information. Here's my upcoming speaking engagements. Yes, I am a global punishment, if not evidenced by doing 4 talks here today, on top of 2 tomorrow and recording a podcast, only to get on a plane, fly overnight to Kansas City to speak on Saturday. So, yeah. I've written some social engineering training, which will be more appropriate for one of the other talks. I'm going to be debuting it at SERI this year, Social Engineer Rhode Island. It's with DC Council. I think it's $499. You get this cool T-shirt that says, "I lost my password, may I have yours?" So it's definitely worth it. That's a link to the T-shirt if you just want to buy the shirt. It's like $25. I don't get anything out of it, even though I designed it. But hey, you know, it happens. Questions? I know we're over time. Any questions? Boatload of material. Yes.
So you said that I took SANS 508 and I took the tests and stuff. So I'm familiar with that. So you envision taking tools, forensic tools, and incorporating them into the normal workday or the normal function of an in-house team, and what would that look like in a large organization? Just sort of.
So it may not be the in-house. Well, it may not be the sysadmins and the engineers doing this stuff. The only thing they need to really be familiar with is taking the memory image or coordinating. Basically, what this talk aims to do is establish the conversation to put it together. If we could train the system engineers and the system administrators to take the memory images, I'm all for cross-training. I mean, in the Navy on a submarine, I had to know the guy beside me's job. He didn't know my job. We had to know the guy beside our job, right? And I'm all for cross-training, but it should become a part of the day-to-day, or maybe not day-to-day, but routine workflow, so that you have these things in your back pocket that you can use.
So you would have a collection of memory images that you routinely collect and store over time, and perhaps as part of the workload, would you just sort of randomly pick and choose sometimes, and just to take a quick look and see what's.
You could do it that way in a hunting environment. Yeah, if you had the time and the resources, absolutely. At a minimum, I would have them stored. So, you know, okay, the HR manager's system gets hit. Okay, well, here's the HR image. Let's compare.
So here's the hashes, here's the fuzzies. All right, and that's where I would work from.
Okay, so you have a before and after essentially in an ideal situation.
Exactly, and that's what this is for because too often when you're doing incident response, you're operating in a stack of needles, and you're only looking for green needles that are 1 inch long or less, and basically, you're trying to do whatever you can to ensure that that information is there. Any other questions? Anybody want free tickets to Hacker Halted? It's in Atlanta. Here's the coupon codes. September 13th and 14th.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got them on every single presentation. So, and if you want to hit me on Twitter or whatever, I'll hook you up with it. It's also 25% off any of their training. So there's that. If you want a Storm kit, you want $100 off that. It's a touchscreen Raspberry Pi running Kali. And basically you can do some serious damage in a small space with it. If you want one, I got a coupon code for $100 off. No big deal there. That's it. So thank you for your time on this presentation. I'll see everyone at 2 o'clock.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes.